Good morning and welcome to week 3 of sports reporting. After this week, we'll be about halfway done with the class. I know some of you might be thinking, "God, this is a lot of work," but do keep in mind that this is a 16-week class that we're condensing into 6. Okay. Before we go any further, happy Memorial Day to everyone. I believe some of you have served in our military, and for those of you who have, thank you for your service. We appreciate it very much. This week, our focus is going to be on the advanced story and on the feature story. Not all stories that we write in sports are going to be covering an actual event. They may be stories that lead up to the event, they may lead up to a season, or they may just be a feature story that try and draw some human interest into tell the audience about the competitors, about the coaches, about the game itself. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those. I do have some detailed PowerPoints for you to look at, so please do take a look at those. It's not a lot of reading. But there is some information there that I want you to look at. Remember, we also have our 2 sports focuses this week. There'll be basketball and wrestling. I'm not going to get into detail on either one of them because I do go into a lot of detail on the PowerPoints there, and you do have your text. Hopefully you are reading the text. I know, guys, I was a college student too. I didn't read word for word of everything either, but get familiar with it. Skim through those. It's an easy read. Jasonde does a great job in his books. So please do continue with the reading and keep up with that. It's going to make you a better sports reporter, I promise you. Okay, so please continue doing that. You will have your blog assignment, you will have your discussion board post, but we'll talk about those a little bit more here in just a minute, okay? So, first of all, the advance. Again, not always are we writing stories after the fact. Sometimes we want to write a story leading into the game. You think about major sporting events like the Super Bowl or the World Series or the NBA Championships, March Madness, and you get lots of stories leading up to the event, to the games, where they talk about the competitors, they talk about the teams. They're trying to get interest. Today, we've talked about in class that newspapers, because of shows like SportsCenter, because we do so much with highlights, heck, even here at UCM, whenever we have Katie Smith, who is our video coordinator, she does the highlights after the game and does a lot of game coverage post-game. We want some stories advancing the game, leading up to it, and so those stories become much more important. All right, so what do you include in an advance? Well, some things you might want to include: the significance of the game. What impact does this game have? You think about the Royals' recent 3-game series against Chicago where they came back and swept them in every game. Leading into those games, you might do a story talking about if the Royals do this or that, or this team does this, the Royals could come from third all the way into first place, which, of course, they did. And I got to see Game 3 yesterday, and it was beautiful. Loved it. You might want to talk about the tradition, some of the rivalry, some of the impact of previous games. So, like, for instance, when Texas played Toronto and Jose Bautista had done the bat flip, was there going to be any retribution in that game? So you might want to advance some of those things. Some records, some team and individual performances that may be of significance, that might happen during this series. Those are things to think about. You might talk about the condition of one of the teams. You know, if you've got a team that's got a lot of injuries, if you've got a starting quarterback who's going to be out because of injury. Basically what you're doing here, guys, think about a movie trailer and what they talk about in that trailer. They kind of give you the characters, they set the scene, they tell you what's happening. That's basically what you're doing if you're advancing a game, okay? You might think about starting lineups. You might think about the weather, what the weather's going to be like, the conditions that they might be playing on, the system of play. That can be particularly useful. Think about 2 football teams who are going to be playing on a grass field, and it's going to be pouring down rain this weekend. One is a team that likes to spread the offense and throw the ball a lot. The other team is a running team. How is the weather going to impact that? Or a golf tournament. If it's going to be a windy, blustery day, that's going to take out the long game for some of your big drivers. But those who have a good short game or who putt well, it might favor them. So things like that can have an impact. Look for a local angle. If you have a local player, one of your former players at your school, for example. So if the Chiefs were playing Tennessee, we might want to focus on Tennessee's tight end, Delanie Walker, because he's a UCM graduate. So you might want to think about things like that. You might offer who's favored, if you want to do a little more of a column spin to it. Who's going to be favored going into the game and why. Those are things that could be useful. See if you can get some comments from players. and coaches, but particularly players, because they can give you a lot more insights. So see if you can get some information from them. Okay? All right, so that's talking a lot about doing a game preview. If you're doing a season preview, you definitely want to be thinking about what the team did last year, how many players they have coming back, the significance of those players. Were they starters? Were they all conference players? Did they lose a lot of all conference players? When I was in sports information, I had to do a preview for every one of our teams before every season, and I had to think about what players were coming back, what players we lost. Did we lose a good portion of our passing game, but our run game was back? Did all of our skill position players come back on offense, for example, but we lost our entire offensive line? Did we just win a national championship in basketball, and this year we have to replace our starting five, but our bench was very strong, and they got a lot of playing time, and they're all back? So those are kinds of things that you need to think about that you can include when doing the advance. Okay? Advanced stories are a lot of fun to write because you do get to put some thought to it in terms of what's the best angle to take. You do get to do a lot as far as statistics. You do get to do some comparisons there and really get to know the other team. So they're very useful and very helpful that way. The advanced assignment is due this coming Sunday, June 5th by midnight. So make sure you get that one in. If you've got questions, let me know. Again, I will look at a rough draft up to Thursday. So if you want me to take a look at your rough draft, go ahead and get that into me. Okay? The feature story. I loved writing feature stories. That was my favorite. Why? Because I really got to know people this way. Feature stories can be things like profiles. They can be the significance of human events. They can be about trends in sports. They can be about the history of sport. You might do a news story about the hiring of a new coach, but then you get to do a feature story doing a backgrounder on that coach and talking about her and her family and her playing career and what brought her to this point. So feature stories are a lot of fun to write from that regard. They do require that you get your hands a little bit dirty because you're really going to have to do a lot of research. You're going to have to talk to a lot of people. And I get it. As a reporter, I'm always amazed by how many students are like, I don't feel comfortable talking to people. You might want to think about a different career then, because in this business, we have to talk to people. We have to do interviews, and they're going to require that you do that. They're going to require that you do a lot of prep work before you do those interviews, because you want to come in with some good questions. You want to develop a quick rapport. They're going to require that you do a lot of thinking. You might do a feature story on a student athlete, for example, who's coming back from an injury. Particularly if you're doing this for video, it can work out really nicely that you set up an interview with that person. You might take them to the field of play where they got injured. So for instance, you might have a volleyball player who blew out her knee. You might take her back onto the court and have her kind of replay what happened for her to injure her knee in that environment where it happened, which could bring back some emotion, some memory. And then you might take her to the weight room or to the training room where she's trained, where she's rehabbed, where she's worked so hard to get herself ready to play again. So feature stories require that you do a lot of thinking about, now, how do I want to structure this? Do I want to get video in different places? Do I want to take her or him to different areas to really spark some energy, to spark some emotion? But they're going to require that you're not going to have an event to cover. It didn't actually happen. You're going to have to plan out time with the person or the people that you're going to be interviewing, that you're going to be doing the feature story about. So you are beholden a little bit to other people as opposed to a set time. I hope that makes sense. But because of that, they are a lot of fun. Now, one thing that causes people a lot of problems when they're writing a feature is, where do my ideas come from? How do I get started on this? There's so much that I could be writing about. I don't know where to begin. That's where the feature map comes in. Feature maps help you get a basic general idea and then work to specifics. Now, there's a big event coming up this summer that you might want to do features about. The Olympics. The Olympics is the biggest sporting event There is, quite honestly. One of my favorites. I look forward to it every 4 years, whether it's winter or summer. I love watching the Olympics. My wife and my kids and I, we sit up late at night watching different events, seeing if history is going to be made, watching different sports that we never get to see. Love watching gymnastics, love watching swimming. I love watching track and field. Even the marathon, the triathlon, those longer events, just the coverage. It's something you never get to see. So let's say I want to do a feature story on the Olympics. There's myriad of ideas of stories that you can do there. So where do you begin? Okay, well, you begin first of all with your general, the Olympics. And then I might get out here and I'll think, okay, well, let's see. We've got the opening ceremonies. Those are always fun. A lot of pageantry there. We might think about the ancient Olympics. Maybe do a little historical piece. We could think about different countries. We could think about uniforms, how uniforms has changed. Of course, we could think about the different events. What else could we think about? The selection committee. Or the organizing committee, excuse me. Okay, so there's just a few ideas, 6 ideas right there. Okay, so we've got the countries, got the organizing committee that have the uniforms, the opening ceremonies, the different events, and the ancient Olympics. So then we build off of each of those. All right, where am I going to go from here with each of these ideas? Okay, well, the countries, I may want to talk about sports culture in those countries. I might want to talk about I don't know, their diets, the food in those countries. Opening ceremonies, they may want to think about the staging, how they built everything. I might want to do a piece about the choreography. Great, pick a word I can't spell. That's it, okay. The events, I might want to talk about, well, we'll talk about track and field. We'll talk about wrestling, swimming, the ancient Olympics, where it began, the awards, uniforms, manufacturers, colors, material. Anyway, you're getting the idea, okay? So your map starts getting really big, all right? So I may look at this and I'm like, okay, what am I most interested in? I may be writing for a publication or I may be on a broadcast network that I have to do a couple of features or start working on a couple of features every day, and I may have to crank one out every single day. So this is going to be really helpful because it gives me an idea of a lot of different stories and a lot of different angles I can take to tell the story of the Olympics, to keep human interest. Because if you've ever watched the Olympics like I do, you know that coverage goes for a long time, and you've got a lot of stories and a lot of news to be putting into there, okay? So this gives you an idea, all right? Your discussion board post for this week is to create a feature map that will go with your feature story. So begin that. I want you to do it just like I've done it right here. Think about different ideas of a feature story that you would like to do. I don't care. Say, for instance, you want to do a feature story on Mules football. Well, then you can look at the winning tradition. You can look at the Mules football team in the postseason. You can look at the different helmets that they've used. There's a website where a guy does just the evolution of football helmets for teams all across college football. You could do a feature story on a player or a coach, and then build how are you going to do that, okay, in this fashion with the feature map. I want you to do it just like I've done it right here, and if you've got a scanner, scan it. If you've got a cell phone that you can take a picture of it, but then attach it to your document. As far as wording for your discussion board post, just tell me, I've decided to do a feature on X. Through my feature map, I came up with six more specific topics, and then off of those, I came up with two or three, and just kind of explain your feature map to me, and then show me a picture of your feature map. Okay? If you got any questions on that, give me a call, shoot me an email, what have you. All right? But that's the feature map. They can be a lot of fun. They can be frustrating because you got to really think about different topics and different ideas. But play with it a little bit this week. Have some fun. Your feature story assignment, if you go to assignments, it's got more detail about it. That's due Sunday, June 12th by midnight. So make sure you stay on that. Again, the sports focus for this week is basketball and wrestling. Remember, you've got the assessments that are due by midnight. Also, remember, you have your blog post on one of those two sports that is due Sunday by midnight. As far as your blogs go, from what I've read so far, you're doing a really nice job. You're giving me what I'm looking for, doing some history, doing some research to find out about those sports, and then give me a little bit of opinion if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to do it more in a little bit of a column format, that's perfectly acceptable, and you're doing a nice job. Do please make sure you're editing your work. Make sure that I'm getting good grammar, good spelling, good punctuation, all of those things. Okay? Last thing, remember I sent an email last week that this Thursday at 11, we are supposed to be at 610 Sports up in Kansas City. We'll meet here at the university, and I will drive. I'll take our family van, and I'll take people up there. But I need to know who's going. I've only heard from 3 of you. I need to know who all is going to be going with us that day. So please let me know ASAP. Okay? Got any questions? Give me a call. Shoot me an email. I will be in the office from about 7:30 to noon every day this week, except for Friday. Obviously, except for Thursday when we're going up there. But let me know if you've got questions, and we'll talk through it. All right? Have a great week. I will see you in class next Monday.